I'm Laura. If you asked me who I was, I'd tell you. I'm a northerner, a runner, an advice worker, a feminist. I was born in Sheffield into a body that felt like me, like a woman. But what if I'd been born exactly the way I am now, but with a man's body? What if I'd felt like I do, like a woman, but everyone and everything around me told me I was a man? In 2014, the Metropolitan Police, the country's largest force, saw offences against transgender people soar by 44%, and it's still estimated that up to 80% of hate crimes are not reported. Transgender identity hate crime is the least commonly recorded hate crime in 82% of the UK's police forces. A survey found 48% of trans people under 26 said they had attempted suicide, and research also found 59% of transgender youth said they deliberately hurt themselves, compared with 8.9% of other 16 to 24-year-olds. I want to find out more. I want to meet the people who these statistics affect, and I want to understand what it truly means to be transgender. What's it like if you don't adhere to society's gender prescriptions? What if your journey takes a different path? What is transphobia and how can we trash it? There is no exact number for the amount of transgender people living in the UK today, but the Gender Identity Research and Education Society estimates that about 1% of the British population are gender non-conforming to some degree. There are approximately the same amount of trans men and women. Here's a definition of gender non-conforming. A person who doesn't conform to society's expectations of gender expression based on their gender binary, expectations of masculinity or femininity, or how they should identify their gender. Transgender, or trans for short, is someone whose gender identity does not match the gender they were assigned at birth. Trans man, a person assigned female at birth but identifies as male. Trans woman, a person assigned male at birth but identifies as female. 300,000 to 500,000 people have experienced some degree of gender variance, 60,000 to 90,000 of whom desired a complete role adaptation, 10,000 of whom have revealed their gender variance to health professionals, 6,000 of whom have undertaken transition to a new gender role. Non-binary or genderqueer. This is a term for people who identify outside of the gender system of male and female. Gender fluid. A person whose gender identity fluctuates over a period of time, which could be days, months or years. Agender, a person who does not identify with any gender. So now I've found out about all these different terminologies and words, I want to find out a bit more about the history of trans people. So I'm going to go and find somebody who can talk to me about that. I'm off to meet Sid Sturges, who's a PhD research student at Sheffield University, to find out more about trans history. Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So you're a researcher. Can you tell me about what you research?
Yeah, I look specifically at the construction of lesbian identity in the interwar era. So I look at from around 1918 to 1939, and I look at the way that identities were constructed. But more widely, I also look at the connection of LGB and T communities.
Can you tell me about the history of transgender people?
Yeah, transgender history is actually quite a long and quite well-established history, even from kind of the Mesopotamian mythologies, which are really the earliest writings that you have in human history. You see people that are described as not being male or female, somewhere either in between or outside of those categories. Before the times of gender reassignment surgery, cross-dressing was really the only way for someone to express their true gender. From around the turn of the 20th century, they would use the term transvestite, and that was invented by Magnus Hirschfeld, who was a German sexologist, and he was based in Berlin, and he invented the term transvestite, and that was used. And then after that, the term transsexual started to be used in around the 1940s, 1950s, and then transgender wasn't used really until around the 1990s.
Because this idea of transgender people has been around for so long, have people always been able to have surgery to transition?
The surgery didn't reach a stage of development where it was safe for people to undergo these kinds of surgeries until around the 1930s. I mentioned Magnus Hirschfeld a little earlier, and he was the first doctor to really oversee surgeries to help people transition. And that took place around 1930, 1931. But before that, people had been undertaking quite experimental surgeries themselves to transition, including things such as injecting paraffin into the chest to form a female breasts, or also undergoing self-castration.
So quite dangerous, quite scary, people having to live in a body that they weren't comfortable with or take extreme measures.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Is it easy for people to find out information about transgender people in history?
I don't think it is particularly easy to find out information about transgender histories, mainly because the information isn't really made available to the wider public.
Do you think it would have impact on society if that information was more readily available?
It's about visibility of the issue. People are often quite ignorant of the fact that transgender people have a long and sustained history, and if that history was made more widely available to people, they would understand that this isn't a new phenomenon.
Yeah. 73% of transgender people experience harassment, with 10% being victims of threatening behaviour when out in public spaces. Between January the 1st, 2008 to September the 30th, 2014, there were 1,612 reported killings of transgender people in 62 countries. That stat to me is absolutely shocking. Over 1,000 people were killed because of being transgender. Finding out this information is really driving me on to find out more. So I'm on my way. I'm going to go and meet Peyton, who is a trans male. You are actually having an operation really soon, is that right?
So next Tuesday, actually.
Wow, that's really soon.
Yeah.
And whereabouts are you having it? In America?
Yeah, I'm going to Florida.
How did it come about to be in Florida?
My mum actually came across the idea to give me some of my inheritance money early. And she said to me, I'd rather see you happy while I'm alive than afterwards.
You've had an appointment with a psychiatrist?
Yeah, I've had to go through the NHS clinic as well. Because I do want lower surgery in the future. So even though I'm going private for my hormones and for my top surgery, it's still important for me to get on the NHS pathway in order to get my lower surgery as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. But with every small change, do you feel like, although it's a new part of your body, do you feel like that you're moving into who you should be?
Yeah. Each month, the changes that have been there before just get better. It's amazing, it really is. It's totally changed my life. I know it's the same for a lot of other people.
What does it feel like when you are misgendered, if someone refers to you in the wrong way?
I think it's just a really horrible feeling. You feel as though you just haven't passed as who you need to be, and even though you've perhaps been on hormones and you're trying your best to look how you're supposed to look, and you're doing everything that you possibly can to just be seen as a cisgendered person, and then somebody might do it accidentally or they might do it on purpose, but somebody just sees you, they misgender you, it just makes you feel absolutely horrible. And it's like you then wake up the next day thinking, well, should I even bother?
Does it make you avoid certain situations or things where that might happen more often?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment I don't go out that much. My chest is a big source of dysphoria for me, so obviously the surgery coming up, I think I'll be able to go on after that and go out more and do the things that I want to do. I just feel really held back for that.
I met up with Peyton last week, and now I'm just going to go and meet Diane and her wife Tracy and their really good friend Lisa. I'm really interested to find out what it's like to come out as transgender to your family and how that might affect people. So can you talk a little bit about the dynamics of your relationship? How did it affect you in the beginning?
Devastated, really. It took a while. I mean, it took us 7 years to work it all out together. But I think all the time, deep down, I knew there was something there that I needed to do to try and because we've been married for so long. We've been married for like 20 years when she first come out. I just knew I had to fight for her.
It's so nice that you both use that word fight, but in a really positive way, fighting for each other and fighting to stay together.
After that first 12 months I told her, I went into a depression, ended up being off work for six months, and I was really suicidal, and I was put on antidepressants, and work were very supportive because I was very open to them about it. At first, there was areas when I was miles away from home, I would be E.D.E.N. But if I was back locally, I had to be back as my old male self, to, in a way, to protect my wife and the kids and that. And that lasted for really 4 years. But eventually at work, they permanently changed my name. And without a deep or Holt was really good. Yeah. The only thing I had then was, every time the post came, I was chasing the post to make sure the kids didn't sort of pick it up.
Wow, so living a double life, really.
It did become a nightmare after a while, because it meant I have my own work van, and it was a matter of driving off as a male, putting into a lay-by, changing uniform, putting makeup on, spending the day, and at the end of the night, then stripping it all off, and that was horrible after a while. Yeah. There was occasions when I did come home dressed, and when I did that, it was on Children in Needs Day, and I thought, well, this might be a nice icebreaker with my daughter at home. And I came home with all made up, and as soon as my daughter saw me, she says, "What?" And first thing she did, went for every door in the house, slammed it, and went off running down the street. And my wife sort of told me, "Get upstairs and get her off." And that was a really hard thing, and she fetched her back.
Tracy, can you tell me a little bit about what that time was like for you? Did you have somebody to confide in, or
no,
how did you?
I didn't want anybody to know. Nobody else knew. I was just scared of people's reaction, so I just kept it hidden. Looking back now, I wish I hadn't.
Was there anything that reinforced the decision for you?
Yeah, we went. It was Christmas, just before Christmas. Me, Diane, Lisa, and Jane went down to Milton Keynes. It's a big night out. And it was the first weekend that Diane had been fully dressed from Saturday till the Sunday, all weekend. And by Sunday I was getting a bit stressy with it, but I got through. And we was driving home that night, and it was quite late. It was a dark winter night. And we waited till the very last lay-by for her to pull up to get changed. Mm-hmm. And I just knew at that point, she was getting changed, she was taking her makeup off, she was getting undressed, back into boy mode. It was dark, it was cold, and I just knew I couldn't let her do that anymore. And the biggest thing was knowing that she'd done it all them years. And I made her do it all them years. And that one moment made me realise that she can't do that anymore. I always knew I just needed to find somebody or find books or whatever. I never used to read anything for ages because I didn't want to know anything about it. But then we just went out, and I don't know, Diane introduced me to Lisa, then I started talking to Lisa. And I think once I started talking to Lisa, I realised there were other people out there.
You're obviously a really important person to both Diane and Tracy. Is it a big responsibility to be a support system in that way?
Oh, it is, yeah. I mean, it's their marriage, it's their life together. And you think, I try and give good advice and try and explain how I felt.
How could you see a big difference in when you first met them as a couple, and then now, or even a few months later?
As time's gone on, Tracy's become just relaxed about the whole idea of things and realised that this isn't going to end things, this is going to be alright.
Yeah.
You can both get through it and the good bits are staying the same.
What kind of advice did you offer then in those difficult times?
I think it's really just to reassure Tracy how little's changing and perhaps validate what Diane was saying.
I think our daughter defined something the other week, didn't she, and said that when they was growing up, they never ever saw us go out and socialise.
Mm-hmm.
We always stayed in. And since we've come out, we're always out. we seem to have got our life back and we're always out.
To us, true love is that it's when we first got married and we made that vow together.
Yeah.
And we've gone through a lot, ups and downs, and we've always kept to that original vow of true love.
Meeting Diane and her family and her friend, it just was really amazing to see. She's had a really tough time and had some really difficult things happen, and I can't imagine living a life like that. Getting changed in a car on the way home, so much pressure to live a double life. But overall, they just are so happy together and so caring and so positive. My next interview is with Kira James, who's another trans woman. She's experienced transphobia at work, so I'm going to go and find out a little bit more. So can you tell me a little bit about what happened to you at your place of work?
Yeah, I've been working there for about sort of 6 months, and when I started there I was kind of starting to present as, you know, as trans feminine full time. And you know, that felt down the line around sort of December time. I decided it was, you know, it was time that I took the next step. And
Yeah.
well, probably the biggest step that I've experienced so far is starting to use the women's toilets. Around sort of mid-January, my boss called me up and he said that there had been complaints about me using the women's toilets.
It's pretty extreme.
Yeah, I thought so. I wrote a diary entry like the first, like the day the manager called me in for the first meeting, and I recorded how I felt about it.
What was the next step? What happened next?
Honestly, I thought it was like over after that first meeting. I thought it had been like cleared up. I was told that I should either carry on using the men's or use the disabled toilets, which is, you know, that's problematic in itself, you know, because disabled toilets are there for a very good reason. You know, by the third meeting, I'd swatted up. I'd read the relevant parts of the Equality Act, and I'd read up on the company policies, which, you know, managers are supposed to be aware of, but, you know, I had to make myself aware of in order to make my manager aware. It worked out that I still got like my contract terminated and got a phone call a quarter of an hour after I left the building saying that, you know, I didn't have a job anymore. My response was to get my union branch together and, you know, make a solid plan for what to do.
Yeah.
And well, we got a meeting together within a couple of days. I laid out what I wanted to happen, which was basically to protest it, picket this company as quickly as possible.
Right. So do you have like placards and...
We had toilet rolls on sticks.
That was amazing. So for all those people, all the snow, the placards, what was the response from the workplace?
We ended up sort of going with the official route after that. So effectively, it sort of acted as a warning of what we could do.
Yeah.
If it came to that. We knew that we'd proven them wrong. We knew that they were in the wrong. eventually I think it kind of worked out that re-employing me was just the cheaper of the options.
Oh, really? Would you class what happened to you at work as transphobia?
Yeah. That's really the only explanation, really. I just feel that someone thought of me as a threat in that social situation. I don't really think there's any reason for anyone to have seen me, or for that matter any other trans person who's just going about their daily business to be a threat.
Yeah.
It's an irrational fear, and that's a phobia.
Yeah. I've just met Kira, who had a massive dispute with her employer because of transphobia, and to hear a story like that is such a horrible example that's happened to somebody, and how strong they were throughout it. So she just didn't sit back and let it happen. She protested against it. She really stood up to a big organisation, and a lot of people don't like to be called brave, but I do think that is really brave, because that's putting yourself out there in a really public way, when really she just was saying she just wanted to get on with her life. Kira is not alone. In 2011, the UK government stated that 88% of transgender employees experience discrimination or harassment at work. I'm going to go and meet Zach now, who is a student who lives in Sheffield, a Catholic Christian, and involved in loads of different projects to support people who are transgender. Your faith is obviously really important to you. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
It's important to me because it kind of gives me a grounding, and I feel like it's something that I can rely on, and a kind of something that I can practice even when I'm not feeling great.
So when you came out as transgender, did you talk to people within the church about it?
Kind of. There was somebody at my school who was a chaplain. He wasn't a priest, but he was a lay chaplain. And I talked to him about it quite a lot before I came out. And I talked to him about being attracted to girls, and then eventually about being trans. And so he was really, really supportive and really understanding and just really easy to talk to. So that was a really positive thing. I had him to kind of talk through it.
So one opinion of the church is that it isn't very inclusive of different groups of people. Is that something that you've found, or actually has it been much more supportive?
I found that mostly people are quite supportive. A lot of the people I know respect me and respect my pronouns, and on a personal level I found that it's usually been absolutely fine. And I've spoken to several priests about it, and they've always been really supportive and respected me, and never really said anything that has upset me. But obviously the church kind of has the teaching, the teaching that it's homosexuality is not right, and being trans is kind of a grey area, because they have these views of what a man and a woman should be, and the roles they play, and so it kind of puts you in a weird grey area with being trans, because if you're breaking that kind of system that they have, then it's questioning.
Have other things happened, or?
Well, there is my parents. I don't like to necessarily call it transphobia.
Yeah.
They just kind of hope that it's a phase. When I first came out to them, my dad seemed weirdly happy with it and was just okay. And then I was oh, that went really well. I didn't think that it was going that well, but then had several different conversations with me where they told me that it was wrong, and that I should not use male toilets, and I should they just brought a lot of other stuff into it, and they were kind of just you're a girl and you never will be anything different, so just stop being silly, basically. And then a few months later, my dad was well, we thought it was just a phase, and if we agreed and went along with it, it would go away. And I was no, that's not how it works.
How was it at school then when you came out as transgender? It was in school?
Yeah, so I was in sixth form. And so I just decided one day that I was going to do it. So I just walked into the headmaster's office and was I'm going to change my gender, okay. And he was just okay. He was quite surprised, I think, but not in a negative way. and I think he like dealt with it really well, to be honest.
In general, what do you think could be done to end transphobia? Is it possible to end transphobia?
I think like with the new generation, people being taught that like being trans is okay, and people being more understanding of the issues like will help. But it also like laws to protect trans people need to be better. More places need to know that like discrimination against trans people happens and like how they can deal with it.
We've talked about ending transphobia. Is there anything that you're involved in at the moment that's working towards that?
Well, the previous LGBT committee started a trans map, which is an app which shows places in Sheffield which have signed up to abide by a trans policy that was written by members of the committee.
What would you like to see in the media? What do you think could be done or shown? Or
I think just more like things about how trans people are like actual people. Like it's not all about the transition and surgery and then you just disappear again.
I met up with Zach yesterday and I think he's had a really tough time, his parents especially. I think it's really amazing that he's found other support networks. So his religion has obviously been a real support to him, and it was really interesting to hear that individuals from the church were so supportive, because I think a lot of general opinion is religion is difficult and not accepting. So that was really interesting to hear. And just how proactive he's been in creating support systems with different apps and things like that. You can obviously tell that's really important to him and really, really supported him along the way. I'm just going to look for some other groups, trying to find things online, different support that's available for people who are thinking of transitioning or who are transgender, and see what's available. I've just come across mermaids, which look like a really interesting group. After having a look at all this information, I'm really interested to meet the people behind mermaids to find out what they do. So I'm going to get in touch with the chair and see if she'll meet with us. So we're in the car on the way to go and meet Susie, who is the chair of Mermaids Charity. Up to now, I've just met adults who are going through transition or who identify as transgender, and from their explanations, they've talked about the fact that they always knew that they were in the wrong body. So it's just interesting to go and meet somebody who supports children who are identifying as transgender.
Hello?
Hi!
Oh, hi, I'm Susie.
Hi, nice to meet you. So can you tell me a little bit about what Mermaids is?
We're a national charity. We're quite small at the moment. We set up in 1995. I wasn't there then. Do you take sugar?
No.
We set up because there was a group of families who were attending the Tavistock and Portman Gender Identity Clinic, and what they realised was that parents need support as much as obviously the children needed the clinic.
So what does Mermaids do on a day-to-day or weekly basis? What kind of things happen?
We've got a helpline, which is answered by a few volunteers, of which I'm one. We've got the email that's monitored every day, one forum for parents and carers, and another one for teenagers.
London's Tavistock and Portman NHS Trust, which runs the only clinic in the UK to deal with young transgender people, had a 500% increase between 2010 and 2014.
Parents are reaching out earlier, and they're also listening to the children rather than trying to shut them down quite so quickly. I don't think there's more trans children. I just think that exposure and understanding is getting better.
Yeah. Do you think that is a common response from a parent or a carer to stop that
conversation? Shut it down, absolutely, yeah. About 50% of the teens that are on our teens group have got parents who will not engage at all.
Wow.
Absolutely refuse to acknowledge that their children are trans or to support them.
So they're existing as a family with somebody who they just won't accept.
Yeah, won't accept it. And we see a lot of kids thrown out. We've got a number of teens that are on the teens group and that we provide support for, who are 16 and above. They've been chucked out because their families have said, you either stay living as female or we don't want anything to do with you. Parents often come from a period, a feeling of fear. They want their children to be accepted, or maybe it's what they consider to be acceptable. And so then when you're actually looking at that as they're going against everything that you thought, some parents go, okay, well, you know, I just want my kid to be happy, so let's work out a way to make that happen. And other families go, no way. I mean, things like you get parents phoning up into a school where somebody's just transitioned and they go, you know, you can't have that kid in school. You know, they can't be allowed to be called a girl's name or a boy's name now. They're this person or that, and, you know, I'm going to take my child out of school. If they phoned up and said that about, you know, an Asian child or a black child or a disabled child, it would be perceived as huge prejudice. But schools are frightened because they don't know that actually gender reassignment is covered under the Equality Act. So these young people are protected.
The Equality Act 2010 protects those who are intending to undergo, are undergoing, or who have undergone changes to reflect their gender identity against discrimination and harassment. So in your organisation, if there is a particularly bad story that comes out in the media, are you kind of read it and then you're aware, you know that you're going to get a lot of calls, you're going to get...
We don't see it so much because obviously we deal with children and young people, but there is a direct correlation between a negative media article and attacks on trans people. It's been proven that violence and hate crime against trans people does heighten after something that's particularly transphobic. So people are hurt as a result of those sorts of stories going out there.
Do you think the people who are writing those stories and producing those stories have any idea of the impact?
I don't know. You would hope not.
So can you tell me a bit about the transphobia that you've experienced personally or on behalf of your daughter?
I went into a school appeal to try and move her from one school to the other. And I sat her down and I said, right, okay, so we need to sort of come up with a list of the reasons why you need to not be at that school anymore and why we need to move you to somewhere else. And we sat down and I said, I just need you to sort of list the incidents. I mean, I had a few, like including that young man who constantly called her. She had one boy who walked up to her and spat full in her face. One time she was walking home from school and a group of guys tried to catch up with her and lift her skirt, wanted to show everybody her bits. Surrounded in the playground, have you got a dick still, when are you getting it chopped off, all that sort of stuff. She was called tranny freak every day, she said to me, every day. And when I actually put together this list, I did like an A4 sheet in like 10-point Arial or whatever it is, and I handed it out to the people that were in the hearing for the appeal for me to get her into a different school, and 2 of them cried.
What impact did it have on her?
Awful. Almost destroyed her confidence, made her feel like she was something less. She characterised herself as a freak, somebody, she used to say to me that she wished she could die and come back as a normal boy or a normal girl.
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's hideous.
In 2011, the UK government stated that 70% of children who were uncertain about their gender were subject to bullying.
We still have people being reported to social services because they're allowing their children to live as their chosen gender. We had one family, and their child's older now, about 18 now, but when they were 11, they were taken, their social services tried to take both their children off them because they let their daughter, who's transgender, have a purple bedroom. Yeah, they tried to get a care order for both those kids to be taken away.
I have heard that myth a lot about giving them time, making, somebody...
If it's a phase, they'll grow out of it anyway.
Yeah.
And you're not going to affect the outcome. And we know that because, we have had young people who've identified, and then hit puberty. And then puberty is sort of resolved their gender identity issues. But then that's only happened twice that I know of. And I've seen hundreds of families come through.
It's such a minute figure for people, the general society, to care so much about.
What's the big deal? Who cares whether or not, my daughter's now my daughter or whether she would have remained as my son? What does it matter to anybody else? Yeah. But they do.
You must be incredibly proud of this organisation and being a part of it.
Well, I say I know from the things that people say, from the things that the teens say and the things that the parents say to us, what a difference we make to people's lives. And we just want to keep doing that, and we want to make sure that we grow on it, so that, because this is on an upward trajectory, and we know that more families are going to be coming to us, and we want to be able to expand to cope with that. It's really important.
I've just met Susie, who runs Mermaids, and the overwhelming feeling I get from her is just being a little bit in awe, really, of somebody who has taken a situation and she's really run with it. She supports the most amount of people you could imagine. She can't even keep up with the amount of people who are asking her for support, and that's what she does day in, day out. Is she calls it firefighting, and that's really what it is. It's unbelievable crisis that is caused by other people and their opinions. So a child makes a decision and they feel confident in that decision about their gender, and then they're just hammered from all sides, just saying, no, this is not right, from schools, from friends, from family, from doctors telling them that these are the wrong decisions to make. And it's so amazing that there's somebody out there like Susie who's reaching out all the time to families and professionals and making such a big difference. Just hearing the stories, the testimony, she's really is actually saving people's lives. The direct correlation between negative media articles and attacks on transgender people that were mentioned by Susie at Mermaids have really hit home with me. I've been looking for evidence of transphobia and I found loads and loads of examples. The police say that hate crime towards trans people in the UK is rising. I found a transgender woman in Liverpool who was asked to move houses because of death threats. So there's a door featured in this article which says, "Get out, tranny." This is actually a reenactment, as in reality the words and actions were even more offensive. I've also found a user of a gym who asked for a transgender person to stop using the female changing rooms. And it's not uncommon for the media to quote the cost of related healthcare, but this is not the case for childbirth or a broken leg. I consider myself a really passionate feminist, and I really respect Germaine Greer. And I was really shocked by her public discussion about transgender women, that they're never real women, because I feel like if you're a woman in your brain, then you're a woman as much as I am. Now that I've met people and I know the direct link between media campaigns and transphobia and transphobic attacks, I felt responsible as a feminist to stop this transphobia being promoted by feminists. All these things show me that transphobia is really prominent in our society, and from an alarming degree of different acts like murder, bullying, rape, constant harassment. This kind of behaviour ostracises and excludes. I'm just on my way to meet Peyton, who's been to Florida for his surgery, and find out how it went. So it's great to catch up with you. I'm really excited to hear all about everything that's happened since we last met. Can you tell me what you've been up to?
Yeah, as you know, I went to Florida to have my top surgery.
First time you went under anaesthetic to go for the surgery?
Yeah.
You couldn't have it?
Yeah, basically everything looked fine when they did all the tests and stuff, put the IV in, they gave me all the drugs and stuff and put me under, and then they said within about 10 minutes I was having breathing complications and some bronchial spasms, so they had to bring me back up because they said it was unsafe to do the surgery.
Do you think people realise that it's a risk that you might go all the way over there and it might not happen?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people take it into account, because I thought that I would just go straight over there, have my surgery, come out and it'd be finished like everybody expects, but didn't happen like that. So I think people have to bear that in mind, that it might not go straight forward.
And then you woke up?
Yeah, I woke up and looked down at my chest and I was just like, because it was just a load of bandages. So I was thinking, well, did this happen or did it not? So obviously the last time. Yeah. So they took me to the bathroom and she unpinned me from the shoulder and pulled it down a bit, and I was just like, yes, it's gone. so happy then.
Yeah, and straight away you could see and feel a difference.
Yeah, immediately.
So what's next?
Lower surgery.
Okay.
But I won't get a referral for that until between next June and next December, because my name hasn't been changed for 2 years. So it's a really crazy process, because you'd think after having the top surgery done, I would be able to just go on and have my referral, but It's not like that.
So is that referral come through the NHS or that's a private?
That's the NHS.
Where are you going now? How do you feel?
I feel like I want to be a bit of an activist. I want to do things. I recently wrote a piece for the Transgender Equality Inquiry, and they used it in Parliament on Wednesday. Some people do choose to live a stealth life and not come out openly to everyone, but I think there has to be some people that do come out openly and speak about what's happening to them, and if I can help one person, then I've done my job, you know.
It's all just really positive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You were a really positive person when I first met you, but you just seem a lot more happy.
Yeah.
This is really nice to see.
Thanks.
It was really amazing to meet Peyton for a second time, to hear about everything that he's gone through, and he's just so excited, he's so positive, and it's just fueled him on to go and do more things with activism and think about other surgery. So it was just amazing to meet up with someone who's having such a positive experience. A poll by Sky News in 2015 found that 19% of people in Great Britain thought that it was wrong to have clinical treatment to change gender. 48% didn't. The Porterbrook Clinic is an important service that transgender people can access in Sheffield to receive the vital treatment they require. We contacted the Porterbrook Clinic for a statement about the service, and this is what they had to say. In Sheffield, the Porterbrook Clinic provides specialist support and treatment to people experiencing gender dysphoria. Porterbrook Clinic is part of Sheffield Health and Social Care NHS Foundation Trust. The main route of access into the clinic is by a referral from a GP. Once a referral has been accepted, an individual assessment will take place, and subsequently, care and treatment will be tailored specifically for each individual's personal requirements. The team provide a coordinated approach using a range of dedicated professionals, including doctors, nurses, psychotherapists, occupational therapists, speech and language therapists, image consultant, and supportive admin team. Treatments are available to support the desired physical changes, for example, hormone therapy, hair removal, and gender confirmation surgery, as well as the therapeutic services to support psychological and social transition. Hormone therapy is closely monitored at regular intervals to ensure maximum feminising or masculinising effect. Each individual is seen by a clinician on a 3 to 4 monthly basis to develop a relationship and offer continued support and advice throughout their journey. We work closely with service users throughout the clinic, and we link to the trans community via a patient representative group and a trans active community group. This recognises the wealth of valuable knowledge and skills of service users to help us create a holistic service for all. I want to meet this trans active group to find out more and the reasons behind forming this service. I'm on my way to meet some people from Transactive. It's a swimming group based in Sheffield specifically for the transgender community. So we're here at Transactive. Can you tell us a little bit more about the group?
Yeah, it was a group that was set up with the trans community and with some help from Sheffield Gender Clinic. We wanted to get a space where we could swim and feel comfortable, and also maybe start to do some other leisure activities. A lot of people that are trans, including myself, feel uncomfortable sometimes, especially at the beginning of our journey, to take part in things like swimming. We feel as though we're in one body, but our body is perceived by other people in a different way, and so it can be very stressful to do something like go swimming. And I stopped swimming when I was 14 because I was just so horrified by the way my body was and how it didn't fit the way I was in my mind, that I had to stop because and I actually regretted that because I really enjoy swimming.
The things that I've read or heard are people having problems with like changing rooms and toilets, and in leisure activities that is, you've got to go to a changing room, you have to pick a gendered toilet.
Yeah, that's right, and that can be quite difficult. Say I wanted to go in the male changing rooms, but I wasn't able, I didn't feel safe to a certain extent, and till I'd transitioned, because I felt like people might see that I have a female body and then I might be vulnerable. So that put me off going swimming for a long time.
So what does this group mean to the local community?
It's a good place for the local trans community to meet together and take part in activities that are good for health, beneficial for health, and also it's somewhere people can make friends and get to know one another, and also to feel like they're part of a group, which is good, I think, because sometimes I know when I was younger myself I felt quite isolated because I was trans, and society doesn't really accommodate people if they don't fit into gender norms, especially in leisure activities and sporting activities.
How can we end transphobia? What needs to happen?
I think instead of looking at one another and trying to determine what gender we are, we just look at people and see them as people and accept them as people. And if people can show that compassion and empathy, then maybe we will one day be able to tackle transphobia.
So why do you come to Transactive?
Well, I started coming because I'd never actually been swimming for donkey's years. Ever since I started, before transitioning, I didn't feel comfortable. I'd not been swimming for years, and I suppose I was a little bit nervous about coming into a shared facility. So it's really built my confidence.
It's pretty much the same as now, really. It's not been swimming since I was a child, and growing up, I didn't feel comfortable with my body. And then when I heard that we were setting this Transactive up, I wanted to be involved in it. So.
Do you think there's a lot of transphobia in leisure activities and swimming, things like that?
Yeah, there is. And also, there's not good provisions like here, where people have got their own cubicle. And obviously a safe space, which is just only for transgender people.
It's striking that you have to use that word safe. So you need a safe space. What happens in other areas?
Well, in other areas, such as like bathroom issues, you know, you get transgendered ladies chased out of women's bathrooms.
Sometimes we have to build our confidence up so we can go out into other spaces that aren't just trans-specific. So, for example, I've recently joined a sailing club. Actually, when you actually go out and get into those situations, people do realise, well, you just actually want to go and enjoy whatever sport it is or activities.
Are there lots of groups like this around the country, do you know?
I think it's improved. When a couple of years back, there was only one swimming club, and that was over in Manchester.
In the whole country?
Yeah, there was only one, and I think there's about 4 now, as far as I know. So it is getting better. Even then, when you think about it, somebody that's cis can just swim whenever they want to, and that's, you know, without any fear. So it does show that it's not far from equal.
I've just been swimming with everybody from Transactive. I have never thought about leisure activities and how transphobic they actually are. You go in, even to go and buy the equipment to do the activity, it's all gendered. There's the male aisle, the female aisle, the swimming costumes, everything is gendered. And come in to choose a changing room, choose the toilets, wearing not a lot of clothing, so intimidating for somebody who is a transgender person or beginning to transition or think about their gender in a different way. This is a really great way of starting to end transphobia, just setting up groups like this. Transactive is a fantastic support group for the transgender community. There's also the T-Boys, which is a group for any person assigned female at birth who considers themselves to be on the trans spectrum or is questioning their gender, including trans men at all stages of transition, intersex or genderqueer people, and all other female towards male expressions of gender variance. T-Boys is the only group in Yorkshire that focuses on the unique needs and concerns of female to male trans people. They offer access to information that may otherwise be hard to obtain, and the opportunity to find support and gain confidence in a safe space where identity and confidentiality will be respected. T-Boys also meet up with people on an individual basis if they want help and advice. They offer support to members and also to those who are new who might feel more comfortable meeting with just 1 or 2 people to start with. If you want support from T-Boys, you're welcome to ring them or come to their meetings. So I've reached the end of this project. I've met loads of really interesting people. I feel like I've had a really privileged insight. I've come face to face with people who, they don't want to call themselves brave, so I want to use words like determined and positive, but they're also incredibly welcoming people. They've made me feel really comfortable and they've really educated me in an area that I didn't know anything about. I've also learned that transphobia is a completely irrational fear. These knee-jerk reactions about toilets and changing rooms, I personally know of attacks that have happened in those areas by women on women, and it's nothing to do with trans people. It's a completely irrational, random fear. Mostly I've learned that trans people are normal people. They're parents, they're partners, they're students, they're activists. They're like me and you, there's no difference. They're not their gender, they're not an operation. They are people and they need to be treated that way. You don't have to be trans to care about trans issues. Share things you've learned, share the things that I've learned, open up a dialogue to get this ignored and forgotten community the respect that it deserves. That's how we trash transphobia.
Crying, dreaming, trying, that's me, here I am. Taking, giving, loving, living, this is who I am. Is who